The Barkscrolls, a Chronicle of New Faery. Fall Festival Ghost Hunting. Saturday, Singing Moon the 28th, 2019. Dampness clung to the air as the singing moon, known to the mundane world as September, drew to an end. Rain was forecasted for the afternoon, evidenced by umbrellas swinging off the wrists, carried in hand, or stuffed in the shoulder bags of the shopping crowds. Their bones told them water was on the way. This was the Pacific Northwest, though. A little precipitation was not going to stop the enchanted residents of the Kingdom of Storms. Nevertheless, Drina accepted the offer of a coat, and Lolly swooped a moss-green scarf, a favorite gift crocheted for her by Lady Ashlanera, around her neck twice. Whether they were stoically bearing the chilly air, or simply living up to the old stereotype that men are space heaters, both the Baron and Durin seemed content without cloaks, coats, or capes. No capes! Inside the Corvallis Central Park, art merchants of every variety filled the green. Fiber art coats, hand-sculpted from felt without a single seam. Metal art yard goblins waging war on garden gnomes. Savory sauces, jellies, spices, oils, and vinegars that the group of Fae enjoyed taste testing. These were interesting times, for they did not bother to disguise themselves. Ears poked out, horns curled prominently. The human zeitgeist of "you do you," the growing acceptance of a broad spectrum of identity, had created the space for the enchanted folk to walk about as they pleased. Not a single person was aware of their true mission: to hunt and capture ghosts that were escaping the graveyards in Count Morbid's duchy. The spirits seemed to have an overabundance of energy fueling them, spurred on by the early onset of holiday season commercialism. Agitated from their rest, they were now haunting and causing havoc all over the place. Mondays still turned their heads, or sometimes whispered and chuckled. Unlike decades past, however, many more smiled and complimented them on their look. Some asked what was going on, and there was even one gaggle that they met at a crosswalk who had eyes for the enchanted. The small group were glad to see their people and wanted to join in the ghost hunting. Drina produced a list from the folds of her shawls and scarves. One of the young girls produced her magic cellular mirror and snapped a picture. "When you find the items on the list, you will have a chance to capture a ghost," she said. The groups agreed to try to meet back at the park entrance at 5 p.m. Parting ways at the forked path which led to the park, the foursome began their subtle hunt. They meandered through the booths of human art, craftwork, and food, keeping their eye out. To every normie there, they were simply browsers who reveled in keeping it weird, Oregon. "There," pointed Durin, singling out a bony form. "Skeleton is on the list." His half-grin showed through his well-groomed beard. Halloween and autumn items attracted kindred spirits, so to speak, or at least this was their going idea. Poised as shoppers, they nosed around the booth, and there, hidden in the ribcage of the skeleton, was indeed an itty-bitty ghost. How exactly does one capture a ghost? It isn't as if they can be grabbed by the arm and dragged all the way back to their graveyard like a naughty child. Similar to a disobedient kiddo, however, ghosts loved attention. They were drawn to it, like tripping in a B horror flick. Now that we've spotted a ghost in a booth, Lolly pulled the group a few steps to the side where they wouldn't be in the way of the other looky-loos. "We're going to play a round of cards." She glanced at the vendor as she said this, as if wanting the apparition to hear her. She dealt a single round of Cards Against Humanity to Baron Hammerhands, Drina, and Durin. "I know they aren't exactly tarot cards, and this isn't exactly a seance circle. The Zana arched her brow from under the hem of the flowing scarf that tied back her hair, traditional of the Roma people. It's all I had. Besides, it's really the thought that counts, right? Ghosts love cards. Before anyone could otherwise object, the princess quickly explained that they were playing a round for the ghost, casting her voice toward the pile of bones every time she mentioned a spook. The idea here is that since we're playing for the ghost, it will be drawn to whoever's cards get the most energy via dark humor. Lolly read out the text on the black card. What's that smell? Shuffling through their individual stacks, the others made their choices and handed in one white card each, which would serve as an answer to the question from the black card. Lolly mixed them up and then began to read the answers. What's that smell? She flipped over a card. Chemical weapons. The group burst out in the only sort of laughter that can come from this card game. Audacious horror. What's that smell? Came the question a second time, along with another card turn. Goblins! That is so perfect, laughed Drina. They were all wiping tears from their eyes now. One last time. What's that smell? Flipping the last card, Lolly choked on a guffaw. I am not saying that out loud, but was unable to repress a smirk as she revealed the blackest humor on the card, showing it to the trio. Everyone winced, their faces contorting at what was basically the equivalent of trying not to laugh when you read the Darwin Awards. You know you shouldn't laugh, but it's so terrible that you can't help it, just like whenever someone drops the "need another 7 astronauts" joke. That's terrible, remarked the dwarf. But then, this whole game is terrible. That was true. The card game wasn't made famous for its tastefulness. Alright, who had goblins? Gobs are the definite winner here, especially being so close to Oberon's territory. Hard to get more perfect. Gunther, who was failing to hide his smirk, raised his hand. That was me. He straightened a bit, bringing him closer to his full, trollish height of 6 foot 9 inches. Princess Lolly handed him a white stone. Here's your marker for winning round 1 of ghost hunting. How do we know if there's a ghost in it? He asked. A stiff gust of wind blew through the park, sprinkling them with a thin sheet of rain. If it were possible for Drina's pointed ears to perk, they did. She clearly was attuned to something they were not. I think that's our sign, she spoke with the experience of generations upon generations who dabbled with the other world. Everyone nodded. No one spoke until they had moved on in their hunt. Thus proceeded the afternoon. As they found seasonal decor and items, there they found ghosts clinging to them like fog in empty branches. Count Morbid was going to have to pay out on that dross come Samhain, a fact that made Lolly chuckle on the inside. Their friendly rivalry had been carefully groomed and tended over more years than anyone was willing to put a number on. It was nearly 5 p.m., their designated meet-up time with the gaggle of teens that had agreed to help them hunt, when Noah's veritable deluge opened the gate and poured forth on the park and everyone. I think we should go back to Starbucks, the newly titled Baron suggested, his accent giving away time spent in Europe. It's warm in there. Everyone readily agreed, and they ducked in and out of the booths, threading their way through a few city blocks to the coffee shop. Hoods and scarves covered their heads, but those ears still poked out. Stepping inside, they all shook off the rain, dampened through and through. While the ladies found a table, the men ordered drinks for them all. Setting down 2 enormous caramel apple ciders for himself and the princess, the troll smiled from horn to horn. I found the last thing. Apple cider. No one had even thought of it. Well, I guess we have a round of cards to play. Lolly cracked a smile and began to deal the black and white cards. Soon enough, their peculiar appearance had once again drawn the attention of a barista, and then of another pair of locals who had sought shelter from the rain for a little bit, just as the group of Fae had. They were drawn to what they identified as their people on some level. The boldness of their merry little band did, in fact, have power in it, right out here in the everyday world. It was good to see it anew. One by one, those who were bold enough to ask were invited to play a round or few and dealt into the game, which was now being played for its own sake. Warm drinks, good company, and laughter sprinkled with a rekindling of that ambient glamour that colors the world. It was a perfect end to their late afternoon.
Hello friends, this is Gone for Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!